This is Akashvani. In the program Insights, now we bring a discussion on government's new panel to review NSO data. The participants are Udayan Ray, economic analyst, and Rajesh Lake, anchor.
Udayan, the Union government has established a new internal monitoring system for official data, modernizing the Standing Committee on Economic Statistics, which was established in late 2019, not long after the results of the most recent round of household surveys on consumption expenditure and employment were disregarded due to data quality issues. Now, would you elaborate as to why SES has been dismantled and we have a new entity, and if you could elaborate on that as well?
Thanks, Rajesh. Basically, as I understand from the information that's available in the public, is that, Rajesh, when we do survey, the survey has to be designed. What is the information that is, or the data that is to be captured in the survey? So if you're going to do a survey of industry, which is the annual survey of industry, and from there you want to bring out other things like how the industrial production is moving. So every survey will have a format in which data is captured. Now, typically when you get the data, then the government and its ministry would respond with some policy measures. Depending on how the data is going, then you respond. So number one is, what is the data throwing up and in what form? The person who's going to take the decision, in this case the government and the people in the administration, the bureaucracy and the ministers. So are they getting data in the form that they want? A. And B, when they actually act, is it showing the efficacy? So my sense is that in both cases, there was possibly some angst or some dissatisfaction. That's why this whole revamp is happening. And the focus, Rajesh, is on design of the survey. So what is being sought, what is the information that's being sought, and how it will be collated and how it will be thrown up to the decision makers. I think that's what's being worked upon. And the interesting thing, Rajesh, here is that far more number of experts can be, engaged in this new format. That's what I understand. And of course, there are some very eminent experts who are being put in place for this new setup that's happening. So this particular setup is going to be very important when it comes to things like our industrial production, the way our industries are moving, things like that. And also that data capture, the way the design is going to happen and how the data is going to be captured so that the decision making, which is based on data, as you all know that, all decision making has to be based on data. You get an information, from the data you convert it into information and you say, okay, we're going to do this because this is the trend that's happening. So suppose there's something happening, so industrial production, things are not moving as well as you want, then the government is going to go and try to do things, look at things which will boost. So it can, come up with fiscal measures or other measures. It can see whether things are happening at the state level or whatever. So, it's almost like a blood test, Rajesh. So you do those tests that happen in people fast or they may not pass, and the blood is taken and results come out. It's almost like that. Unless that capture is in a form and it comes in a way where decision makers can take decisions effectively, then it becomes a problem. So I think some of this dismantling and remodeling, or what our revamp, shall we say, is probably moving around this aspect of data capture.
Let's go back a little and look at how the CSO and NSO came into being. So they are all part of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, which was founded as an independent ministry on October 15, 1999. And the Department of Statistics and Department of Program Implementations were combined to create it. And the wings of this ministry, MOSPI, is NSO and CSO. Now, would you like to elaborate on NSO and CSO?
Well, these bodies, basically they move around, they capture data on various aspects. So CSO data, you would have seen that typically when you're looking at some of these national statistics, how they move, they are captured by them. And here, as we're talking about NSO, we're talking about these surveys that happen. You have to capture the data through surveys. So, and these organizations have a very rich legacy, Rajesh. And over a period of time, as you rightly mentioned, the merger of two ministries happened, and right now, they're basically two parts of the same ministry. And rightly so, they probably need to work together in tandem. But the key part, as I was mentioning, Rajesh, is how you capture that, especially for things like surveys. What are you capturing and how you're capturing? Now, it's worth pointing out, Rajesh, that lots of data within our country that are also captured by other sources as well. For instance, things like exports or some of the other aspects, say Reserve Bank is also capturing them. There are other organizations that also try to capture it. They may also draw from some of these common sources. But what happens is when you're analyzing some of these data that's happening, you would like them to be as accurate, latest as possible, as recent as possible. You don't want too much of discrepancy happening. Also, the fact is they need to you should be able to really rely on that data, So if data, gets affected, for instance, if the data gets affected too much by seasonal effects, so which a lot of people, the experts will call it seasonality of data. Certain things, the data that's coming to you is a particular season, effect of a season. So we typically, to give an example, during the monsoon season, you typically a spike in vegetable and food prices, fresh produce. So similarly in industries also, industrial production, there are seasonal, say giving a particular season or one particular industry behaves in a particular. So you would want, at least in the Western countries, you have seasonally adjusted data that comes in, or the part that goes to the public is seasonally adjusted. So one is to capture the data, whether it's a survey-based data that's coming in, or any other data that's coming in, that needs to be recent, and they should not go through many revisions. So you'll see that CSO data, some of the national income data, you have an initial estimate or whatever, preliminary estimate, then there's a revised estimate, then the changes happen. So of course, before the challenge, Rajesh, used to be we didn't have that kind of an apparatus to capture that kind of data. So those challenges were there. But all these revisions that happen, you have to look back. Suppose you were to make a decision based on that, policymakers have to make a decision. So if there are changes happening and if there are significant changes, then your conclusions can be very, very different. Okay. Similarly, in a program like here, the one that we're right now talking, where possibly investors or other people who are interested would want to know, for them, if they're making an investment decision based on some of these macro national sort of what we call national income kind of data or national economic data. National income data would be things like GDP growth, etc. Then, what happens is then you may not be making the most informed decision that you would like. Now, compared to where we were in the past, now we are a far larger economy. We are the fifth largest, and therefore you need by slight reasonable upgrade in a lot of these data capture apparatus.
Absolutely. Udayan, you said it very right that we are a big economy now. So therefore all the more reason that the data be very crisp and very precise and be designed in a manner that aids the other industry or the economy in general. And also, then the fact of the matter is, and I'm putting it very bluntly on the table, the Standing Committee on Economic Statistics, which was founded in late 2019, has come under fire for surveys performed in the past under the auspices of India's National Statistical Office, and they said it had very poor data quality. So what will change? What administrative changes will take place, and how this replacing the SEEs with the Standing Committee on Statistics, which has a broader vision to allay the worries and enhance the statistical apparatus, how will that happen?
Sometimes what happens is, Rajesh, it's like, as I mentioned, the blood test. So suppose there are 20, 30 things that you can glean from a blood test. But suppose in the blood test that you're doing, you're just capturing 5. And those 5 are also, 5 are not the one which are relevant. So suppose the doctor wants to know what's happening to a certain gland, say a thyroid, but you're doing a regular blood count. That's not what's required, right? For a kidney, there's a separate test. For a liver, there's a separate test. Okay, for infections, etc., you have the standard test. Some certain infections, dengue, you'll do platelets. So it's like a blood test, You need to be looking for the right thing. So the design has to be such that it looks for the right thing. Now, to look for the right things, you need to understand what's going on in the economy. So maybe the design changes, the design issues had probably to do with, basically what is the information that you're seeking. When we're talking about survey design, you're saying this is what we are seeking, these are the information that we are seeking, this is how it's going to be laid out, and this is the reason why we are doing it. So it probably calls for they'll look for a much better understanding of how things are, how statistics was collected in the past. That's why so many experts, there's a provision for reasonable number of experts, and how that continuity will happen, and what is the transition that's happening. Rajesh, let's not forget that, our economy is making a tremendous transition. The new industries are coming up, older industries are going through a certain transition. So, and way in which we used to capture things like GDP data and other data, so those have also changed, right?
True, I agree. Noteworthy is the fact that SEOs is made up of notable academics as well as 10 official members and 4 non-official members. There is a chair, a woman also chosen, and the first chief statistician of India and a former head of the National Statistical Commission, NSC, Pranab Sen, has been chosen as the chairwoman of SEOs. And the members of the Economic Advisory Council, particularly Abhibek Debroy, who has called for overhaul of India's statistics apparatus, emphasize the need and the necessity of the SEOs. Now, coming to the role of this new group, if we were to count 3, and I would like you to elaborate on them if possible. 1, expanded mandate and advisory role. 2, this committee is going to address the gaps. And 3, and approve a request. For example, the National Statistical Commission has a final say in whether the survey results can be published, notwithstanding the SEO's assistance in that process. So these are the 3 broad roles that this group is going to play going forward, the SEOs. And if you would like to elaborate quickly on the expanded mandate and advisory role and addressing the gaps which you've been talking all along.
First point is very important. Sometimes you want to know where is the gap in the data capture. How are you capturing the data from which you will now be informed. So a lot of things are changing on the ground, and the way data was being captured and the periodic nature of it. So that is important. So that is being dealt with. The interesting thing is that what they are talking about is there will be a quality check as to, so there, before the whole thing goes to the decision makers and it gets published, there's a very stringent quality check, which I think is the most important one. First is, if there's a gap, then you fix that gap. And if there are areas that are not being covered, then you try to cover those areas, because the new areas coming in, new data requirements have been getting thrown up. So Rajesh, you have so much of global interest. People want data, because on the basis of data they'll invest, they'll make their plans. So you need a more robust, more frequent and more unimpeachable quality data. And the third point I thought was really important, where, you before you publish it and things are going south, if you fix it at a point where things have not give you too much of problem. So I would say these 3 look pretty good to me. I mean, in terms of conceptual, and it's actually right aligning with the requirements that are now coming up. So when you actually, our whole economy is now data driven, whether it's right now we are into tax season and so much of data and AI is now all set to be used. So every area is getting into it, and since we now have a digital backbone, this shouldn't be a problem. So national income statistics and some of these things, national data seem to have been lagging behind.
Okay.
That's a much needed requirement.
Thank you, Udayan, for being with Akashvani and throwing light on National Statistical Office.
Thank you so much, Rajesh.
You were listening to a discussion on government's new panel to review NSO data. The participants were Udayan Ray, Economic Analyst, and Rajesh Lake, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.